Good morning, afternoon, and evening, guys. We're back with another random tier list. Today we are diving back into the World of Warcraft. We're talking about leveling, everybody's favorite grind, trying to get to the end of the game so that you can actually play the game. Now we're talking about World of Warcraft Classic here, the original version of the game relaunched, I should say, about 2 years ago, that has become just as popular, if not more popular at times, than the regular, modern version of World of Warcraft. So in WoW Classic, there are 9 classes for you to choose from, and you can level with any of them that you want. However, they are definitely not all created equally. Here are the classes ranked or listed in alphabetical order, and we are going to go ahead and rank them by what is the best leveling class. And for this, we are going to take primarily we're going to go with speed into account, as there is definitely some interest in trying to get to level 60 as quickly as possible, especially when it does take so long in Classic compared to the retail version, right? So we are going to primarily focus on speed, but we are also going to take into account ease of use and how how boring it might be, because some classes are just not as fun as others to play with, at least if you're leveling. And we'll talk about that as we get there. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. If you do like the video, definitely leave that like on it. Leave a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you like it. Let's get into it. Starting off with Druid here. Druid, I think, is pretty mid. I think it's a pretty mid-tier class. I'd actually go ahead and put it up one more, because while Druid has the issue in WoW Classic, some of the classes that can do more than one thing, for example, Druid can deal damage, take damage, or heal. Some of the classes that can do all three of those things, they kind of end up being a jack of all trades but master of none. And I think Druid really falls into that spot where they can run really fast by transforming into travel form and stuff, which is awesome. They can deal decent damage. They can heal themselves, but they don't do anything fantastically. So in my opinion, they'd be B tier. They'd probably be, I don't want to give away the rest of the ranks. They're definitely above average. Average is going to be our C tier in terms of classes and whatnot. So Druid, going to put them in B tier. Next up we have Hunter. Hunter is an S tier class in WoW Classic, and it makes sense. Hunters are a ranged class, meaning you're not always in combat. They do use mana, but their abilities don't use up mana as much as the actual caster classes do. And the primary reason the Hunter is so valuable is because they have pets. As you can likely hear the bell going off for my cat behind me. Just like that, hunters have pets that they use in battle. And the pets basically will take damage for you, right? They get the monster's attention, and you can use your pet to drastically increase your leveling speed. By having your pet kill something that you've already started attacking while you're running to the next target, you can basically be in constant motion, and as a hunter, it is one of the fastest ways to get from level 1 to 60 is just simply play a hunter, especially if you're playing by yourself. If you're playing in a group, being in a group can kind of make up for some of the shortcomings of some of the other classes, but as hunter, it is the absolute fastest solo leveling class in the game, unless you're going to do some AoE stuff, which we'll talk about in a sec, which I guess Mage is next, so we're going to talk about that. Mage is also S tier. Mage is the best class in the game and the only class in the game that can consistently do AoE leveling. Now, what does that mean? AoE stands for area of effect, basically meaning Mage has a lot of abilities that do damage to more than one enemy at once, and they are the only class in the game that can consistently do enough damage at a higher level to kill multiple targets simultaneously, which means multiple targets are giving you experience, which is obviously good if you're trying to level quickly. Mages can also create their own food and water, so they never have to go back to town, to buy food or water to heal themselves. They can also teleport to capital cities, which is not going to be the greatest thing for leveling, but can definitely save you some travel time. And sometimes traveling across the world can take 15 minutes, half an hour. So just being able to teleport as a mage, that will cut down on that. Mages are, I believe, the best leveling class in the game. I do believe the world record is held by a Mage player at 19 hours. In fact, I'm gonna double check that to make sure I am not saying anything crazy here. And so we're gonna go to speedrun.com here on my second monitor, loading that up. Level 1 to 60. Yes, Mage. So the world record held by Mage, 19 hours and 29 minutes. That is the 1 to 60 record. And if we look at solo, solo, the record for Hunter is significantly more than that. You're looking at about 2 days of playtime, completely solo, unaided. So it definitely takes a while to get to level 60 in WoW Classic, but Mages can do it the fastest. And if you're completely by yourself, typically Hunter can be the fastest as well. Depending on how you're playing, these two are the fastest. Spoiler, there's not going to be anything else in S tier. These are the two best classes. Everything else is kind of like a step down. And I almost got rid of our A tier because it is a fairly big step down. There's only one other class that kind of competes, and we'll get there. But next up we have Paladin, which is a class that doesn't compete. So Paladins get to be in D tier because Paladins leveling, you're just hitting stuff. You're just right clicking to punch, or I guess swing your sword or mace or whatever. That's pretty much it. They can heal themselves, which is nice. So you don't really have to worry about food as much. But Paladin's playstyle is incredibly boring in WoW Classic, at least while leveling. And yeah, they don't do anything, really, really good. They're kind of slow at leveling. They do get a mount for free. Well, you have to go through the quest line, I guess. But they don't have to buy it, which is nice. But overall, gonna put them in D tier. I don't think it's anything to write home about. Next up, we have Priest. I'm gonna put Priest in C tier. Priest is a good class to level in that they can heal. They aren't really dependent on gear that much, and their abilities don't really take them that far out of the way to receive, I don't believe. Basically, Priest is a class you can just sit down, level with, boom, you're good. Now, it isn't the fastest, and that's simply because Priests just don't do as much damage as other classes. But if you want a relaxing, chill leveling time, and, you want something that's still going to be, maybe not the fastest, but something that you're not going to lose time being inefficient. Priests are efficient, they're just slow. They just do less damage, and that's basically what holds them back. So they're better than Paladins in that they don't, you have more things going on than just auto attacking, and you have to worry about less things. Obviously, they're ranged as well. So C tier for the Priest there. And this one might be a surprise. I'm also going to be putting Rogue into C tier above the Priest. I think that Rogue is a class that is very, very dependent on their gear. They're the only melee class in the game to, well, I guess Druids use leather. But Rogues are the only pure melee class in the game to use leather armor. And they also have completely melee builds. They don't use anything else. Obviously, hunters shoot a bow. And pretty much every other class either has plate armor or something else, right? So Rogues can be squishy. They can die easily if you don't know what you're doing. And they're incredibly dependent on their weapon for damage. And if you're leveling in an area that's not going to give you a good weapon, oh well. You're going to be stuck with a subpar weapon, which will affect your leveling speed. Now, if you are a great player, Rogue could be a B tier, maybe even A tier. If you're going to be leveling in an area with a lot of other players, specifically enemy players, first of all, that's a bad idea because you guys will be fighting each other. But if you're a PvP-minded person and you like to ruin somebody's day, or maybe they're ruining your day and you're going to get them back, the Rogue could be a great class to do that with. So that would take them up to a B or an A tier, but just all things considered, an average player, playing any of these classes, picking up, not a pro, so to speak, I think Rogue would be a C tier class. Next up, we have Shaman. Shaman, I am going to put there with Druid, B tier. They're very similar. Shamans can't tank as well as Druids can. In fact, they're not supposed to tank at all, but in Classic they kind of can. But they can heal. So similar to Druids, where they're a jack of all trades, master of none type deal, Shamans are incredibly overpowered in the late game of World of Warcraft Classic, but as far as leveling goes, they're not. They're not bad, they're above average, but they are not overpowered by any means. Their Ghost Wolf ability for mobility is a fantastic ability to get, so that does really keep them above average as well. But I do think there is a step down from A tier to Druid and Shaman here in B tier. And our A tier class that I have been alluding to is the Warlock. Warlocks do everything that Hunters do. They have demons as their pets. They just don't do it as good as Hunters do. They're not as easy to play. Their playstyle is a little more nuanced, has a steeper learning curve. I don't think their demons are generally as useful as Hunter pets, but they do generally do the same thing overall. So Warlock is like a knockoff Hunter, so to speak, in a way. There is some differences, but at least for leveling, especially if you are not running dungeons and stuff, the Hunter is just going to be a step up from the Warlock. Now, if you have a Warlock and you're able to summon people to dungeons and stuff, that might be a benefit, but that's not really, prevalent generally to most people leveling. And finally, we have the Warrior. The Warrior is a fantastic class at endgame World of Warcraft Classic, I think. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about leveling, and they're F tier for leveling. Warriors have the same issue that Paladins have, in that they pretty much just cut people in the face all day. They just auto-attack and press a couple buttons here and there, incredibly boring. And occasionally, they will just lose health because they can't heal themselves like Paladins can. They're also more dependent on gear than Paladins are. So sometimes you just won't get gear that you need, or if you don't really plan super well because, maybe you didn't realize you have to strategically plan for every single zone you want to level in World of Warcraft Classic. If you didn't know that, Warriors are going to be an F tier option for you because they are so gear dependent, they are so boring to play, and they can't heal themselves. So they have kind of none of the benefits the other classes do, which sends them down into a D tier, or into an F tier by themselves. And that's it, guys. That is the tier list. This is it. World of Warcraft Classic leveling. These are the fastest and a little bit of fun in there, too, we were talking about. Classes to play as for leveling from levels 1 to 60. I am also in the comment section, or description, somewhere down there, will also be a couple links to a couple videos I was watching earlier today that was giving me more information on why Hunters and Mages can be so great for leveling. So definitely check those out if you are interested in getting into speed leveling or just getting into World of Warcraft Classic and you don't want to waste a lot of time. That will be down there in the description. And with all that said, guys, hope you appreciated this video. This has been the guy who makes random tier lists. There'll be another one up tomorrow, just like every other day. I'll sign out here, guys. Have a great day.